Reloaded, we are back. Yeah. And I'm talking about this big fancy word that's super Christian and makes me sound like a biblical scholar even though I never went to college. So are you ready? I'm talking about God's omniscience. Now, God's omniscience is spelt like omniscience, and so don't be uneducated like I am. When I look at it, I want to say omniscience. Pro tip, it's pronounced omniscience. Doesn't look like it though. So, now, God's omniscience, what that means is that God is all-knowing. So where can we find that in the scriptures? Because these videos are all about loading your clip to spray the script. Alright, so we're going to go to the scriptures and we're going to see a few different ones that if we trust the Bible and we know the Bible is true and there is no incorrect thing within it, then we can use the scriptures to back up our thoughts. And so if we're saying that God's omniscient, that He is all-knowing, knowing that He knows from the beginning and the end, He's the Alpha, the Omega, all those big, fun, super awesome things, let's look at stories. Well, one story I like to look at, because I love the story of Jesus at the well. So we look at John 4, and in John 4, how do we know that God's all-knowing? Well, Jesus is sitting at the well, and this lady pulls up in the middle of the day to get some water in her bucket, and, you know, they conversated back and forth, then Jesus hit a mad hardcore juke on her, and she goes, "How do I know you're the Son of God?" And he goes, "Woman, stand back, for you have had 5 husbands, and now you are living with your 6th man, who is not your husband." And it's like, bro, how you know that? How did you know? What? How did you know about me? Because He's omniscient. He's all-knowing. And so we can look at these scriptures and see Him walking out His omniscience. In the psalmist, he writes about, God, you know when I sit and when I stand. And I look at that and I think that he's referring back to Psalm 1 as well. And he's saying, for blessed man who does not walk in the way of sinners or sit in the seat of scoffers or stand in the way of the wicked. So I think he's referring to that. Like when he says, God, you know when I sit, when I stand, he's basically saying, hey, God, you know whenever I sin. You know when I walk with the wicked. God, you know when I sit with the scoffers. God, you know when I'm doing these bad things. And so we can see that they're realizing that. And then Solomon also talks about it whenever he's saying that you know the which is before us and what the days are to come, because we believe this truth that God is all-knowing. So what does that mean for us? What does God's omniscience mean for us? Well, it can help us rest in peace knowing that He's got a plan. If He knows, if He's omniscient, if He's all-knowing, then He knows what we're in, number one, and He knows what the outcome's going to look like. So have you ever been sitting and watching a movie? It's a thriller where you're like, oh my gosh, don't go to the closet, don't look in that, don't do it, and you're freaking out. And then you watch it again with your wife, and you're sitting there eating popcorn, and she's freaking out, but you're sitting there eating popcorn, busting a fat chill, because you already know the outcome, so you're not stressed and worried about that person opening the door and entering the closet. I feel like that's how God is with us, because He knows the outcome. He's sitting on the couch eating popcorn while we're chilling. God, no, why are you letting this happen? But yet He's all-knowing, and so He can rest in peace knowing that what's going to come is good. And so you as a believer, and you as you're trying to walk in your faith, although it might be hard, and trials are going to come, you can rest knowing that God's all-knowing, that He knows what you're in, and He has a plan for the future of it. Because Genesis 50:20, what man means for evil, God means for good. And He can turn any broken situation into a situation to glorify Him. So rest in that. God's omniscient. He's all-knowing. He knows the things that are to come, and He knows the things that have already passed. For He is the beginning and the end. See ya.